Okay, Mrs. Batson has joined us, and she was, well, tell us what you
I
were
was in
telling
the
us.
audience one time.
She came to luncheon at the Knoll. She was working in Dixon outside of Nashville, but
Okay.
they were having a meeting,
Young farmers and homemakers.
young farmers and homemakers. And several of the people that she worked in the office where she worked wanted to come to luncheon at the Knoll, and they wanted her to come, and she didn't
I
want
want
to come.
to.
She didn't want to come, but they prevailed upon it, said they'd already bought the tickets and everything. So she came on. Now, one of the things that we did at luncheon at the Knoll,
You just saw me. You don't have to.
well, I'll tell it my way. You can tell this was rehearsed. One of the things we asked people who came to the show was to fill out a card with their name, their address, and any information they wanted to share with us and everything. I saw her when she came walking into the ballroom.
And she
and to
caught
the
your
table.
eye, right?
That was the prettiest woman I thought I had ever seen in my life. And I knew I had to meet her. So I was very particular that I took up the cards from her table. And when I got her card, I slipped it on the bottom so I would know where it was. Then I took it to Dave Overton, the MC of the show, and I gave him the card because he went around calling on people. And I said, I don't know how you want to do it, but I want to meet this girl, and you take care of it. So sure enough, Dave was a little short, and so when Frank stood up, because she's nice and tall, that was one of the things that attracted me, he was a little shorter than she was, and so he played on that he was afraid he needed help. He needed somebody to come out and help him so that she wouldn't beat up on him. I don't know what he said, But anyway, he called me out. So I came out and I stood by her and we did a little routine and stuff. And then she sat down and we went on with the rest of the show.
And Jimmy, the 27th of this month, we'll celebrate 58 years.
58 years.
58 years
And
we've
you
been
have
married.
Two children, and how many grandchildren?
2 children, 3 grandchildren.
3 grandchildren.
And a great son-in-law.
Great son-in-law here in Florence.
Right,
yeah.
right.
Right.
But I just wanted to tell you.
Well, like I say, this is fascinating to me. I lived next door to y'all for all those years, and I had no clue you were a Grand Ole Opry announcer, and until several years ago when you told me about all this. And like I say, I've been fascinated by it and wanted to get it on camera. So
We were glad to share it with you, Jim.
sounds like you had a plan that day.
I did.
And
Didn't work out quite the way I wanted to, though, because we had some little things, trinkets of some sort, that we gave away to people just as favors. And so I grabbed one because I wanted to go give it to her and have a chance to meet her personally after the show was over.
Yeah.
But she had gone when the show finished.
Let me get your
Yeah.
picture here, and there's Mrs. Batson. What, 2 or 3 years ago, I
Yeah,
guess,
2 or
right?
3. 2 or 3.
That's
And
when she
there's-
was. That's when she was Miss Wallace.
Miss Wallace, and there's
That's
the
where she became Mrs. Batson.
marching down the aisle.
Yep. But she had left the show so quickly that I was not able to give her the little gift. But I did have her phone number, so I called her at work in Dixon and managed to talk myself into a date.
That was probably a long distance call back then,
Yeah.
wasn't it?
It was then. And it was a long distance courtship because I lived in Nashville and she lived in Dixon through most of our courting.
But you got to know highways. What was that?
Yeah.
Highway 70?
Yeah, I knew it very well. I could almost drive it in my sleep, and sometimes I did.
All those curves around the Harpeth River. And,
Right.
Well, I got off from work at 10 o'clock at night.
oh,
And if we had a
okay.
date, then I drove to Dixon after I left the television station at 10 o'clock.
And it was probably about an hour drive over
Yeah,
It was.
back then
just about an hour.
by Montgomery Bell
Yeah,
Park.
go by Montgomery Bell. And,
No interstate back then.
No,
Right.
no interstate then.
I remember that. I remember before I-40 was built.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate the
Well,
interview, and you don't mind me putting this on Facebook, do you, Mrs. Batson? I think a lot of people will get
Oh,
a kick out of seeing this.
get sick of it.
No. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Tim.